DDO Players News is brought to you by the Table of Ultimate Gaming Kickstarter. If you're in the market for a brand new gaming table, this is the one that you want because you can customize it to your specs. Kickstarter table packaging on Kickstarter at $5.99 for the 3.5 table, and there is a 4x6 option as well. Each table comes equipped with AC power and USB power outlets in 2 locations on the table. The campaign is nearing its end, folks. Don't miss out on your chance at a great gaming table. There is 9 days to go as we record the show. Check out our show notes for the URL to the Kickstarter.
Good day, everyone. This is Pineleaf Mules, and welcome to DDO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in DDO and on the tabletop. And please welcome my co-host from Ravenloft, Dracula.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Hello, Drac. And today we have a guest who must be related to you because we got a vampire here, and now, since the name is Sip, I presume someone who sips blood?
Arr, matey.
Yeah, Sip from Massively OP and Battle Bards Podcast.
Yeah, it's Talk Like a Pirate Day tomorrow. Come on, Pineleaf.
And from BioBreak is here this week. Welcome,
That's right.
Sip.
Sip does everything.
Yeah, there was a rumor once I was actually a cloned short Italian, and I actually do like 5 or 6 clones to get everything done. So it's not true. I'm just kind of out of my mind.
Okay. Anyway, we will initiate you tonight by asking you what is your history with MMORPGs, with Dungeons & Dragons Online, and if anything goes with it, Dungeons & Dragons on the tabletop, perhaps maybe tabletop games in general, since that's also something we cover.
Sure. Well, first, let me thank you for being on the show tonight. It was really nice of you to reach out and invite me, possibly because I was blogging a little bit about DDO lately.
Yes, so, that piqued my interest, actually. So I'm like, hey, I got to get Sip on here.
Yeah, it's you got to get me while I'm still in the game, right? It's kind of a running joke. I'm often flitting between MMOs, and part of that is just, the job of writing at Massively OP. I like to get a broad perspective, and partly just because I go to wherever my interest lies. And lately I was kind of desiring to get back into the Dungeons & Dragons online scene. It was a game that I had great passion for back when it originally launched, and for about 3 or 4 years after that, all the way through the big free-to-play change. And, its glorious renaissance as everybody came back to that game and was like, oh, it's free. Wow, this is so cool. And we had guilds, and we had a column at Massively, an actual column that we wrote every week on DDO. It was great. So I had wonderful memories of that, and it's just been years since I've been in the game. Thought, you kind of get intimidated going back to a game after probably we're talking like 5 or 6 years at this point. And there's, like so much has been added. And I know that because I've been covering the news for it. I've been doing, it's weird doing interviews with like Turbine and Outstanding Stone, and they tell me about DDO. And I'm like, yeah, I sort of remember this game, but I'm not playing it. I'm just going to nod a lot and go, yeah, monster manuals. That's okay.
That's awesome. That sounds good. Yeah.
Hey,
advanced class. What?
Hey, did Ravenloft have anything to do with your decision to come back?
A little bit. It seems really cool. We haven't heard that much about it, unless you guys have heard more than I have over the last couple of months.
No, unfortunately not. I keep trying to get stuff out of them, and they won't talk.
Right. I think we probably have seen the same forum post where they said that, they wanted to get Mordor out for Lotro, and then they kind of gear up for Ravenloft. But they better get a move on here. I'd like to see it come out before the end of the year. It seemed really cool. Like, I love the fact that DDO has expanded to include more than just one campaign setting. I liked Eberron. I think Eberron's great, but having that option, that's a cool flexibility. So I know Ravenloft is a neat setting, but also just like I missed it. I wanted something casual. There's something about DDO that almost no other MMO has, and that's that weird, like, heavy instanced design where, there's such a wide variety of instances. They're not just traditional, half an hour dungeon crawls. Some of them are super long. Some of them are chains. I don't know. The structure of it's cool. The game master thing is cool. So yeah, I probably haven't answered the rest of your questions, but I've played a lot of MMOs. In terms of D&D, my history has been, I grew up a sad and lonely kid, honestly, and this is not a sympathy thing. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. So I always liked the idea of RPGs. I just never had anybody to play them with. So I would buy manuals and I would read them. And I read like GURPS, and I read D&D, and I read some of the other ones, but I never really had anybody to play with. And then I got in college, and by then I knew that some D&D groups, but I was too busy and I couldn't get a part of that. So I've actually never been part of a D&D campaign. I'm 41 now. I've never had that experience. But I've always been very attracted to, like, I go to Gen Con. We were talking before the show about Gen Con and how cool that is. And it's sometimes just cool to be amongst people who are so into a scene that you don't have the time for or the money for, because egads, tabletop gaming looks expensive sometimes. But it's really neat to just like peep in on that world and admire the geek culture, beyond just your personal experience. And sometimes I get so tempted. I'm like, I can't wait till my kids are older. Maybe I'll have my own little D&D.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to disappoint your listeners. I'm not going to be the most experienced tabletop gamer. I did kind of fiddle around with what was that fantasy gaming board, the online one, where you could like run D&D and Pathfinder campaigns virtually. I fiddled around with that a little bit.
Fantasy Grounds, maybe.
Fantasy Grounds, yeah. But never had a group, and it's always a question of time. Just MMOs suck up so much time, and
I hear you.
There's a limit. So yeah. And so I write for, I have my own personal blog, BioBreak, and I do that about every weekday. And also I've been writing for Massively and now Massively OP since 2010. And I do news and columns and podcasts and whatever they want me to do. So.
And we are going to grill you on all of those later, so be prepared.
Hey, sure.
All right. Now let's then head into the game news, and we'll begin with a story whose headline sounds worse than the actual story.
Yeah, it's kind of clickbait in a way, almost, really.
Yes. and that is saying that Menace of the Underdark is temporarily unavailable, and then the part that should have been added at the DDO store.
Yeah, I kind of freaked out when I saw this. I'm like, oh my God, they closed down like a whole quest chain. What is going on? Yeah, no, it's just Cordovan did post this over on the forums today that we have temporarily removed Menace of the Underdark expansion from the DDO market, and that, of course, is the real money DDO store. It's not the one that's in-game. It is the real money store. Just FYI, while they correct an issue that was causing players who had purchased the expansion from not being able to apply their codes correctly, and they apologize for the inconvenience. So apparently, and I know I have read rumblings of this on the forum. People were saying, hey, I bought this, saying it's an invalid code. Some people were getting it to work, but they weren't being granted in game. So there's just kind of some weird issue going on with the market, but they are fixing it. So never fear, it shall be back for sale soon.
So does that mean you can still get it through the regular DDO store then for points?
That I don't know. I'm assuming because they didn't say anything about the store, so I should have checked that today, but I didn't. So I'm going to say yes? Question mark?
Question mark.
Hedge your bets.
Hedge your bets. All right. And the Crystal Cove is back for an encore. Probably for Talk Like a Pirate Day?
Exactly, because it ends tomorrow, which is September 19th as we record this. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday when it comes out, wah, wah, you missed it. If you're listening to it live, you might want to go enjoy the Cove while you can, only till September 19th. But yeah, it's for Talk Like a Pirate Day. You can always count on when Talk Like a Pirate Day rolls around, Crystal Cove will always be back because that is just like the piratey event for DDO.
Right. Sort of like the...
Tales of the Lost Mariner and Lotro.
Yeah, Tales of the Lost Mariner and Lotro, yes.
This is DDO's equivalent of that, so yes. So when you know Talk Like a Pirate Day is going to roll around, you're going to have those two options in both games.
Yar, yar.
Well, then let's head into the DDO Chronicle issue 250.
And sorry, Pine Leaf, they didn't do anything special for the 250th. I know you've been talking about that for a while now.
Oh well.
It's just a regular Chronicle. In the community spotlights, Sip who just happens to be on the show, I don't know how that happened, is blogging about his DDO experiences on his BioBreak blog after coming back to the game. So imagine that he's on the show to talk about that. Coincidence?
Well, it's kind of funny because actually they almost never put me in Lotro players. The Lotro Community Chronicle, because usually I'm slightly criticizing them, and they don't. I sometimes think they don't like me, so there's been many weeks where they've just not highlighted any of my posts, and so I thought it was kind of funny. But
by the way, before you continue, what is this thing on the?
That is from one of the new quests. Give me a second. It'll come to me which one that is from. It is from, God, I brand these things so many times. Strike Back.
All right.
That is from Strike Back. That is in right outside the end boss room. That is the main room before you go into the temple.
Okay.
I passed through there many a time.
Okay.
Also, in our community spotlights, NicoBite has created a compilation of beautiful scenery from DDO. So click over and watch that video. We got a shout out for the video that we put together showing off the new Mimic Hunt rewards. And DDO PL is a Polish language DDO live stream that takes place every Tuesday afternoon. So if you just so happen to speak Polish, you'll understand what's going on because it is in Polish.
Because no one else will understand it?
I didn't, because I watched it one day, and I'm like, I want to check this out. And I'm like, I understand what's going on because I know the quest they're doing, but I can't understand a word they're saying. But
well,
and there was like a lot of people in there that were like typing in Polish too. So they have quite the following. It's kind of awesome that way. But yeah, I had no clue what was going on. I was like, this is like bizarre. This is like Bizarro world that I'm in.
Bizarro world. It's almost like you're in Poland?
Something like that, yeah. Over in the fansite news section of the Chronicle this week, DDO Cast is offering up tips and advice for levels 4 through 6 in the continuation of that series. The Damsels of DDO got a visit from Evennote. Click over and check out their episode. We got a shout out for our episode last week. And finally, in the fansite news section, Mickey is in week 43 of her raids. She is still raiding every week. Mickey is crazy that way. And then, of course, we have our Chronicle comment, like we always do. So the question this week is, why aren't there magic socks?
And actually, there are magic socks. It's just that Santa Claus keeps on stealing them all. You know, if we're hanging on stockings. Never mind.
Cricket.
That got really dark all of a sudden.
Wow.
Okay, maybe that wasn't the...
Like, wow, that shocking coming from Piley, Steven. That was like dark.
That's probably my worst answer to one of these yet.
And Gums King in the chat is saying, that is a trick question, because you know when you do your laundry, there was always one less sock. That was the magic sock.
Ah!
See, and my answer to that is there's no magic socks because socks always get holes in them, and they don't work when there's holes in them. So you have a magic sock, and then you wear it, and then you get a hole in it, and then it's not a magic sock anymore.
Oh, well, I would have thought that it would have become a holy sock.
Wow, Pioneer.
Sorry, that was my Latin chanting.
I got it. I got it.
Just imagine a sock on the end of a big staff and a guy in a giant hat walking. Get the full effect.
It's like another little guy like rocking incense around it. And
yes.
You got it. See? I'm with you, Sip. I'm with you.
It keeps the smell down, yeah.
And then finally in our Chronicle, we have our official screenshot of the week, and that is Tehran poses with the greatest hero in the 333rd. That is hard to say. DDO screenshot of the week. Check out all of the screenshots by going into the link in the Chronicle.
Now let's head into our store sales, and I will presume that there isn't currently a sale for the Underdark.
No, shockingly, there's not. We do have 20% off select adventure packs. So I should have checked to see if Menace of the Underdark is one of those that were on sale.
Okay.
Usually it's not, so I'm going to say it's not, but I don't know for sure. And Quest XP Elixirs in the store at 20% off. The free sample of the week through September the 21st is a light spell point of potion. You will get 10 of those with the coupon code Mr. Spell, MRSPELL, Mr. Spell. It's kind of a weak code this week. Usually the codes have been good. This one's kind of,
Oh, well.
Those codes are nice. I like them in Lotro a lot. Although every once in a while you get kind of a meh one. It is. Everybody's always asking every week, what's the code? What's the code? It reminds me of the old Lotro lottery they used to have.
I missed the Lotro lottery, actually.
That was
fun.
awesome.
That was fun.
Hobbit presents aren't nearly as fun.
Oh, well. Alas, the website can no longer support it. So now let's have a little interview with our friend Sip here. And we were wondering about any more experiences you want to share about your coming back to DDO?
Yeah, and I might actually have some questions because, of course, you guys are so experienced at the game. That's what I've been wanting to pick some brains. And it's.
I think you thought you were on DDO Cast is where I think you thought you were. But
you guys picked up an old copy of the box,
that's right.
2006, and
right. Hey, this game looks cool. Well, I'm going to start a podcast about this game. So, yeah.
Okay, can I tell you a secret I've never told anybody about? Actually, no. This will make so many people upset, though. Oh, well, I don't care. So, long time ago, because I was covering DDO regularly for Massively, Turbine basically adjusted my account so that I had an eternal subscription to Dungeons & Dragons Online. It's like one of the few games that I actually have that privilege. It's not like I get lots of these perks. It's just one of the few. And that was kind of cool. Like, it was really nice at the time, before it went free-to-play, to have that. And after it went free-to-play, it's still nice. You got those extra perks. But having left the game for 5 years, I came back and I realized I had been accruing those points.
Holy crap, you're kidding me.
I had 44,700. I don't know. I had some obscene amount of store credit and I haven't spent anything. It's not like I don't actually, there's anything in the store I want. So I don't know. Anyway, so that always kind of amused me, but I'm like, well, if I say anything, then people are going to be like, hey, how come he gets it? Like, right. Well, I'm not being paid off or anything. I don't cover the game, so that's not an issue. So anyways, I came back and I rolled up. I went with the gnome because the gnome is completely new to me. That was a really cool little model with the weird hairstyles. So I went with a gnome artificer. This is how long I've been away. Artificer is new to me. Like, that's completely new.
Oh, boy.
Because back in the day, I used to play a bard, and my whole build was structured around having kind of a spellcaster who also had the heavy repeater. And I love the heavy repeater crossbow. It's my favorite weapon in the game. I was, it was cool. So I'm like, hey, the artificer gets it right out of the gate. I don't have to wait until I'm level 10 and finally build my character to get there. And it's got a pet? Yeah, sign me up for that. So... That's what I've been playing. I've been having a blast, just kind of going back through the harbor quests. And, actually, it was strange. Like, I've been gone from the game for so long, but it's amazing how fast that all comes back to you. Like, the Yar quest. I'm like, Yar, dude, I've missed you. It's been so long. And, the Butcher's Path, and just hearing the very familiar DM narration. That was really cool. So my hope was kind of to get far enough into the game where I was getting into content I had never seen before. I don't know how far that's going to have to be. It's probably going to have to be after some of the house quests, and I know that I haven't done any of the expansions, anything like that.
Oh, at level 7.
Yeah?
I don't know, what level are you right now?
I think I'm 4.
Okay,
4
when you hit level 7, there's this little place called the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Oh, that's old Greyhawk campaign, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I know a few things.
Yeah.
But see, that's I'm a little confused about that. Like, where do I go after the harbor? Like, does it lead you to certain quests, or you just kind of hop into the zone, or what?
Well, there is the Sean Syndicate out in the marketplace.
Yeah, your next logical step from the harbor will be the marketplace.
Okay.
And then you can do all the marketplace quests, and then that's when you start going into the houses as well.
Yeah.
I thought about just looking at the whole list of quests and going, okay, I've done all these, so I'm just trying to find where next level quest is.
And then DDO Central in the chat is pointing out to get to Temple of Elemental Evil, you're going to go into the Hall of Heroes to pick that one up.
Okay.
And also the Slave Lords series will be in the Hall of Heroes for you as well.
Sweet. Yeah, so I've been having a great time. It's amazing to me how, I went with a very default build. I went with a suggested build. I know it's so easy to gimp your character, and people are, I'm sure at this point, wizards at creating awesome builds. I just want something that plays decently. I want to have a fun time. I don't want to have to worry about it too much.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually, especially if you're new or you're coming back or whatever. Yeah. I always recommend people, if you're new or you haven't played for a while, do that, get a good feel for it, and then you can roll up your own character and actually do the advanced path.
Sure. You can always, can't you respec or...
Yeah, gonna say, you can go in and respec that character out too once you get a better feel for it. But
yeah, I have no complaints at this point. My only complaint at the beginning was I had no healing spell. I had no way to heal myself. And then I found out that there was a feat that I could turn myself partially into a golem, and that way my repair skill would affect me, and then I could heal myself, and that was cool. Those little synergies are neat to find, and you don't have a lot of MMOs that have that kind of thing. So getting back into the game, a lot of fun. The whole systems come back to me. Really enjoy the narration and the stories, and even some of the zones were kind of pretty, like doing the Yar quest and looking at the sky and some of the designs. It's still a little blocky. It's aging, but it's not ugly, which is cool.
Exactly, and because for a 10-year-old game, it looks pretty darn good, though, really.
And the newer stuff, I've seen the screenshots. They have some really cool design. I liked some of the puzzles, and I forgot how many dungeons had puzzles, some of them have fail conditions, which is not something I'm often used to in quests. Sometimes MMOs have fail conditions in quests, but these DDO dungeons, I wasn't paying attention to one. Like the early one with the sarcophagus, and you can only break 7 of them. And I wasn't paying attention at all. And suddenly I'm kicked out. I'm like, what the heck? Oh, I didn't read the quest objectives. Well, read the manual, Sip. Read the manual. So having a generally good time. I do have a gripe. And I want to ask you guys about this because it's not an attack on the game. It's just something I've been sorting through as a returning player, is I can't find a guild for my life in this game. I started out, I went to, Galahadra or whatever that server is.
Oh, Galanda.
Yeah. I was reading all these, I used to be on Kyber, so I thought, let's just, I want a server that's popular or whatever. I did some research. Few people recommended this. I said, okay, I'll start fresh. It's a fresh start. And I, got through the whole tutorial, the whole intro zones, got into the harbor. And usually I have a two-step process for finding a guild in a game that I just jump into. I pay attention to general chat, see if anybody advertises, trolling for new players, and see if they at least spell their guild recruitment advertisement correct. And then I might try them out. And there was nobody. So after a while, I just kind of put it out there. Hey, returning player. And I get the only comments I get back are you're a returning player and you're only level 4?
Really?
I'm
Wow.
Oh,
dude,
boy, that's
I
rude.
rolled a character. That's why okay. And then I started, so I'm getting no bites whatsoever, and this is multiple nights, and I kind of get itchy. If I can't get into a guild, I feel like I'm not connected with the game. I need to ask people questions. I want to feel this camaraderie. I don't really, even if I'm only soloing dungeons and I'd still want to have this connection in the community. And so the next step is I pull up the guild list in the game, and I sort it according to name to the guild title, so that I can see if there are multiple members of a particular guild on. And so I start sending them little pings hey, are you guys recruiting? No, we're not recruiting. No, you're not high level enough. Are you raid ready? No, I'm not. Okay, yeah, we're closed.
Wow.
We're closed many times.
Every hardcore guild in DDO sounds like.
I must have the worst luck. But it was amazing to me. I finally got a guy to talk to me, just to talk. He said, yeah, our guild's not recruiting right now, but, I'll talk with you. And he said, yeah, this server's full of elitist snobs. I can tell you that. He was telling me, he's like, he just said, it's just the way of life. People are kind of used to, the only people left are the hardcore people, and they don't want new people. I was like, really? Because I would have thought, coming back to an older game, that, usually you have communities so excited to have anybody new come back to the game. So I don't know if it's just my very limited experience, this particular server, the time of day I'm on, but I will be fair. I did have a couple people reach out to me on Twitter through email and said, hey, if you're on this server, we'll hook you up, or give me a call. I'll see what I can do. So it's not been total blanket unfriendliness. It was just kind of really surprising to me. I was taken aback, and I even had a frustrating moment one night where I just rage quit that particular session because I had 5 guilds in a row say basically buzz off. And I on Twitter, I said, seriously, DDO Unlimited, this is the community you're fostering? Fine, I'm going to Neverwinter. Goodbye.
Yeah, I know I'm going to take flack for saying this, but yeah, Galanda is pretty much like that.
What server would you recommend, and how would you recommend I go about finding a guild that's welcoming to new returning players?
I would go to Argo, which is Arganescent, or I'd go to Caneth.
Okay.
I think those two are going to be your 2 best bets for your new player-friendly guilds. And I know Argo has a bunch of newer player guilds. I'm always seeing them going... are advertising for new players looking for their guilds, or if anybody needs help, let them know. And DDO Central is saying the Barbarians Guild on Arganescent would be a good guild.
Okay.
And I know the guild I am in on Argo is very new player friendly as well.
Hey man, you can hook me up.
So there you go.
There's no easy way to transfer. I'd have to pay, right, or re-roll. Probably at level 4.
I would say just re-roll. Yeah.
Though there's this joke on Lotro where I said a Pine Leaf transfer was creating a new character on the new server.
Yeah. But yeah, and then DDO Central in the chat, is saying the Barbarians Guild on Argo is open for everyone. So there you go.
All right.
So but yeah, I think you just unfortunately hit the server that is not... I don't play on Galan. I mean, I have like a couple characters over there, but I don't play on Galanda a lot. But I have heard that, and I've kind of ran into that when I know I've joined like a LFG and I got kicked out immediately, and they said, learn how to play the game and then come back. So I'm like,
yeah,
awesome.
Dude.
I'm like, you guys are awesome. So yeah. Like I said, I'm sure I'm going to get hate mail, and we're going to get hate mail, but that's fine. Sorry, Galanda. That's what you're putting out there for the community.
Yeah, so. And I didn't want to, obviously, I'm very new and returning. I'm not making any sort of, massive judgment or permanent judgment. It just, that was my experience. And that was the only really not great part of it. And I was kind of taken aback because, Lotro, and that's kind of the sister game here in Turbine's Fold, is renowned for being super friendly with their guilds, and that's all I've ever encountered. And that's what I remembered about DDO. Like, I liked that community, even though it was smaller. And so maybe it's, it's out there. I just, I wasn't in the right place at the right time. And that was a bummer because I had so many questions to ask. And I wanted, even though as I'm remembering things, I'm sure so much has changed about the game. And I'm just muddling along, trying to do my best. And,
actually, I think the elitist guilds in Lotro would just have ignored you completely in the first place, so you would only gotten responses from the ones who were more friendly.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I don't know if there's a really optimal. I'm sure there is an optimal way of starting out. Actually, the account I'm set up with now is even starts me out on this airship and gives me an option to skip ahead in levels. I don't know what that's about. That seems like a later change.
Oh, that's veteran status.
Yeah, so I'm veteran status. So, but I'm man, I'll always start back at level 1. Yeah. I go through,
you're like me then, because I've been infamous for that, because
yeah.
Drac always makes fun of me because he's going veteran status and
I skip Korthos.
Constantly. Level 1.
I think I could skip Korthos next time. That's not my all-time favorite It was nice to do, but it's another thing I really liked, and I forgot about this about DDO. I love the gear. It's really cool to find gear that's like useful, and it's not just a bucket of stats and nothing else. Yeah. Like starting to collect gear that can be used in different ways as like supplemental skills is a really neat idea, and not something a lot of MMOs don't really center their gear structure around. So I'm sure that like stats are important. I'm sure that's going to be a thing, but it's kind of cool. Like getting, I got these boots and they're featherfall, and now I don't have to worry about jumping off high cliffs because I was doing that apparently a lot. And yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Like you find all these ways to kill yourself because you're assuming this plays a lot like other MMOs you've been playing for the last 5 years, and it's a bit of a different scheme.
Yeah. It's got at least as much in common with 3.5 DDO as it does with an MMO. Yes,
probably. But it's fun. It's sometimes the combat's a little floaty, but it's still really enjoyable to like with my heavy repeater, to snipe guys 200 meters away, and they fall over dead before they even start running at you, and that's tons of fun. Or seeing my iron golem go bark, 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 bark.
Okay, now let's see. Anything you wish to add from your BioBreak blog?
I don't know. I mean, you guys want to ask me questions, I'll answer. I don't want to bore people listening. I write every day, but actually, because my schedule's so tight these days, that I mostly pre-write all of my personal posts on the weekend. And so I try to get around to every one of the games I'm playing. I usually play like 2 or 3 MMOs at a time. And so a particular night, I'll just say Thursday night, I'm just playing DDO. I play for a few hours, then I log off. I take all the screenshots that I just took and write up a blog post, use those, and then I'll schedule it for like 4 days from now. And so sometimes I'm talking, like you read a post, but it's really something I've written a while ago, and it's just, I don't know. It seems to be working out for me because with my kids going back to school and with news, writing MMO news in the morning, I very rarely have time to just wake up, grab a cup of coffee, and write a blog post. It doesn't happen. And I'm sure you said you want to talk about Battle Bards. You want to talk about Battle Bards a little bit?
Yes, I do. If people aren't familiar, Sib also does a podcast that is called Battle Bards, and it's all about the music of MMOs, which, to my knowledge, is the only podcast that covers MMO music.
Which we're still surprised about because it's been going for 3 years now. We thought somebody else might have done it, but it's such a niche within a niche interest. And we haven't run out of games or music to talk about, which is great.
It is just like amazing. So can just talk a little bit about it. Like, how did you come up with the idea that, it's like, there's no podcast about this. Let's create a podcast.
Yeah, so I love video game music. I've been collecting it for years, and ever since being into MMOs, collected MMO music. And that's a cool thing about MMOs, right? That they're constantly being expanded, and they're also constantly adding music. Most of them, because they're expanding. So usually, we just there's like this growing body of tracks and soundtracks and scores. And I had been talking on Twitter with some friends about it, and I realized there was like a few of us, and so I floated the idea. I've always wanted to do music podcasts, but and I'd heard, what was it? It was called Top Score. It wasn't NPR, but it was Wisconsin Public Radio show. And this lady, Emily, had been doing this very professional video game music show. I listened to a few episodes of that. I said, I love that format. And the format she had come up with was usually an interview format between her and somebody else, but she would interweave clips of music into the discussion. So you're listening to them talk, and then you're listening to some of the music, and then you're listening to them talk. So I sent her an email. I said, okay, I'd like to ask you some questions, like, mostly about copyright issues. Because I know you can't just go and say, hey, let's listen to a full hour of MMO music.
Exactly.
I don't own that music. I can get, cease and desisted quickly. She said, well, fair use. If you're reviewing that music, you can do about 30 seconds of music in the clear, which means nobody's talking over it. So what I normally do on Battle Bards is we pre-record. We had this whole process, and we were talking about it before the show. Me and my 2 co-hosts, Steph and Sil, we get together and we work on a spreadsheet. We have all our shows planned out months in advance, and we each pick like 2 or 3 tracks that go either with a I think we alternate, and we do 1 week we'll do a specific MMO like DDO. I think let me look this up. I know we've done a DDO show. I was pushing hard for that. My co-hosts were not too thrilled about it, but oh well, deal with it. Episode 35. There we go. Episode 35. We did DDO, and then every other week we'll do like a theme. Like we'll do like dark and scary music, or boss battle music, or ogre music, or tropical resort music, stuff like that. So we'll sit down for one Saturday out of the month. We'll do 2 shows back to back. We record, and then the next week I'll take one of those shows and I will edit in music. And so I'll usually use about a minute of music per clip, and but we'll talk over about 30 seconds of that. So it feeds, so we're talking, and the music comes in, and then our talking fades out, and then we're just listening to music, and then we fade back into conversation. And it feels like it makes more of a dynamic discussion. And we're already pretty lively. Like we go back and forth a lot. We're kind of feisty. We're, constantly harping on each other's opinions and our decisions and our picks, but we have really good discussion about what we love about MMO music, how it makes us feel in games if we've played the games that have this music, and I don't know. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about each other's tastes, how MMO music works, what works, what doesn't work, what soundtracks are just treasure troves of wonderful pieces of music, which ones are completely forgettable. And it's amazing to me, like people who follow MMO music just casually might instantly say, like, okay, what are the games they always think of? It's like Final Fantasy XIV, great soundtrack. Or they might say Lotro, another great soundtrack. Age of Conan always comes up because it's award-winning and all that. But what we found out is there's so many MMOs out there that are instantly dismissed. Their soundtrack is instantly dismissed because the game it's related to is like a nothing game. But they have great soundtracks, and so we're always discovering. And so part of our mission is to bring these rather unknown soundtracks to the larger, geek audience and say, you might not play this game, but it has a kickin' soundtrack. Definitely check it out. So, yeah,
and
it's a fun show.
I've actually discovered a couple soundtracks just off the show that I found out
what ones were interesting to you?
I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Espada Grandia or whatever it is.
Espado.
Yeah, Espado Grandia or however it's pronounced. Yeah.
Espada.
Yeah, Granada. That's it. Yeah, that one. There's some of them that are like, but there's some of it that it's like awesome. I'll just like throw that on if I'm like, cleaning or like I'm doing something during the day or whatever. I'll just like throw that on in the background, and it's just awesome background music. And then I'm thinking, it's like, how cool is it that this is from like a video game, and I'm just like listening to it just because it's awesome. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, but that show is very, very well produced.
Thank you. I've learned a lot about podcast producing from that show.
Yeah. It's like, it is amazingly well produced. So kudos to you. I'm sure it takes you a lot of time to put that together, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it's like a 50, 60-minute episode usually takes me about 2.5 hours to edit. But that's fine. I actually love doing it. I can do it in bits and pieces here and there. It's never as perfect as I would like it to be. There's always too much background noise, and getting 3 people, one of our podcasters is in Switzerland. So we have a bit of, it's world spanning, and sometimes there's some artifact noise. But it's a lot of fun, and I've certainly learned a lot. In fact, I've carried my knowledge between that and the Massively OP podcast, doing those two. I've developed the skill of doing podcasts and editing podcasts, something that actually used to terrify me. I was on podcasts, but I always wanted somebody else to handle the editing, because I'm like, dude, I don't even know. How do you even start to do this? It's not that hard. You just, yeah. So I'm sure as you learn, there's some tricks to it, but also it's kind of nice being the editor, because if I ever sound really dumb, I can kind of edit it out.
Exactly.
Like, I shouldn't have said that.
It's like, why did I say that? Guess what? I never said that. Nobody knows.
Or you start noticing all the verbal tics you have, and it's just so embarrassing. Like, how many times do I say or make that little sound? Because I do that a lot, and it's unfortunate.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, you definitely sound like a podcaster, Sip. You really, really do. I never noticed all that either until I started doing and editing this podcast, and I'm like, I really got to stop doing that.
And I do one other show. I do Retro Reprise. It's a very occasional, this is a retro video game music podcast I do solo. And the one thing I've discovered with that, I like doing it every once in a while, but it's not nearly as fun when you're doing a podcast just by your lonesome. It's so much more fun when you're bouncing off somebody, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you did kind of mention Massively OP and the podcast. So you want to talk about that? And that is another excellent podcast as well.
Yeah, we do that every Monday. We record every Monday afternoon, and it goes out Tuesday afternoon. And I don't know how professional or not it sounds. It's usually we both have kids, right? So she has 2 kids, my co-host Bree, who's also our editor-in-chief over there at Massively OP, and I have 4 kids, and every week it is a nail-biting dash to see if we can get an hour of podcasts off while our kids sleep. And there have been podcasts where I hit the mute button. I'm like, go back in the other room. I'm not done yet. And they're like, Dad, I want a drink of water. I'm like, no water for you. Dad's recording a podcast. So I don't know I never know how official we sound or anything, because usually once I'm done with a podcast, I never want to hear that my voice ever again. I'm sure you guys aren't like that. You love the sound of your own voice.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. So, yeah, we record but that's an MMO news podcast, and then we do some opinion. People write into us. So we usually talk a bit about what we've been playing, talk about the big highlighted news of the week. Sunday morning, I will sit down before church and make a list of all the news from the previous week and pick like 5 or 6 stories that I think, not only very interesting, but we could actually talk about and try to change things up. So we're not just talking about patches or just games that are coming up, but kind of get a good overview. Like if you haven't read the news the past week, we want to give you a good overview of what's been happening in the MMO world. And then our listeners always send us in really incredible questions, and sometimes they just stump the heck out of me, but we keep going anyways. We've been doing it for a long time, so it's really nice. I'm sure you guys know this from doing this show, is the longer you do a show with somebody, you get a good rapport going, and it's a lot smoother going back and forth. And it's great that I've had such a wonderful co-host. In fact, some other Massively OP people come in every once in a while, and even more rarely, once in a while we do interviews. But those I would love to do more. I would love to do more studio developer interviews. They just take a very long time to set up. Usually, you have to go through PR channels, and my week is so tight that I am always like racing to do news, to get this done, to get a column done, to get my work done, to take care of the family. I don't usually have time every day to sit down and do like 6 rounds back and forth with the PR person to get an interview. So
speaking to the choir.
Right. So usually it's just like, oh, they contacted us. They want to do an interview. Great. Bring them on the show. But it's unfortunate because usually if you do an interview, and this is something we don't make super public knowledge, but usually there's a PR person in the room listening to the call. And it's always a little awkward because you're always waiting for them to go, oh, no, you can't talk about that.
Yeah.
You have to cut that out.
Which I have had that happen during a couple of my interviews I've done before, too. And it's like, oh, sorry about that.
Right. So then you get to all this like second guessing. Like, can I ask them this? And usually I just go for it. I'm getting old. I'm getting crankier. I'm like, dude, life's too short to dance around questions. Just ask people what you want.
Get off my lawn and answer my question.
But isn't that the best thing about doing these kind of shows and working at doing Massively News is because I get access once in a while to the lead developers of these games we all play. I can ask them any old question I want, anything. I can grill them about pet peeves. I can ask them questions that, players are just always griping about on the forums and they never get a direct answer to. I get a direct answer. So I feel a little privileged sometimes, and that's like a heady little moment of power of just going, maybe they'll say no comment. I don't know, but I'm going to ask them. I'm going to try to get a direct answer. One thing I'm trying to refine in my interviewing technique, and it's not always the best, is to not accept PR fluff as an answer. Sometimes they're very good at giving you a non-answer, and sometimes you have to be okay pressing them and saying, well, that doesn't really answer my question. Can you give me, So that's something. It's like getting over that social, like they're okay. They want you to feel awkward. They don't want you to follow up. And sometimes you need to follow up. So I'm trying to get a little better about that. But I've had fun. I don't know. Do you have any specific questions? I'm just rambling. I'll shut up.
No, I think you covered it. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew about all that and all the stuff you did and all the other great things you do. And like I said, definitely, and I will put in the show notes, I will put links to all these. But definitely, if you're not listening to Battle Bards, what is wrong with you and why aren't you listening to it? That is all I'm saying. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Can I add one more thing? Let me.
Sure.
I just want to put this out there for any listeners. For Massively OP, at least I'm just speaking for our news blog and no other games blogs out there or anything. But we want people sometimes kind of rail on us saying, "Why didn't you cover this game, this story?" And usually it's because there's a billion MMOs out there. And we are not omnipresent and omniscient. You need to let us know. Like we try to be aware. We have so many Twitter feeds. We have everything going on. Stuff escapes us. If there is ever a game or a story you want us to cover, we have a button for that. You will send us an email. Just go to the top right-hand corner of the site, massivelyop.com. It's called Tips. Send us in a tip. It goes to every single one of our email inboxes. And we follow up on it. Sometimes we'll decide, no, we've already covered it, or it might be too small, or the day's way too busy of news. Sometimes it gets kicked to our weekend wrap-up. But more often than not, we do report on a lot of news people send in. And that, so they kind of become our frontline reporters, especially if they're very passionate and follow a game very closely. Because there's only so many MMOs we can follow at any given time. So just wanted to put that out there because that's always like one of those little things I wish more people knew.
All right. Thank you, Sip. Yep. And now it's time to head into our site news. And Drac takes a look back at the old Dungeons & Dragons cartoon that was released back during the 10th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, I put this up yesterday on the site, on Sunday actually, because I noticed that September 17th, 1983 is when the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon hit the airwaves. And I remember watching this as a kid, and I remember it just blowing my mind that it's like, because that was just about the time that I started, maybe a couple years before that, I started playing pen and paper D&D, and I started getting in it, and I'm sitting there one Saturday morning eating my bowl of cereal, watching TV, and I'm like, it's a Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. This is like awesome. This is the coolest thing I have ever watched on TV. And it was a great show, and like we were kind of talking about this before the show, yes, it has 80s cheese. It still has 80s cheese, but I have the box set of this, and I actually watched all the episodes a few weeks ago, and it still holds up. It's still some amazing writing, and for a cartoon, it was pretty violent. And I did kind of talk about that back in the day, I'm not sure how this was ever made, because it was pretty violent. And
but the 80s was back in the days when there were all the big complaints about cartoon violence.
Right. That's why I can't understand how TSR ever actually got this on the air.
Okay, because of the complaints.
Because there was some pretty dark themes in it too. Like there's one specific example I talked about in one of the episodes in season 2. The kids actually contemplate, Venger is like the big bad that they fight every week, and he's like the big main evil villain. And in season 2, there was one episode where they actually contemplating killing him because they figured that was the only way they'd be able to go home because, they were stuck in, the realms of Dungeons & Dragons. So they actually considered killing Venger, and they actually they worded it weird. They didn't actually say kill, but you knew that's what they were talking about. They were going to, like, kill him. And I'm just thinking, wow, that's, like, pretty dark for a kid's cartoon. It's great.
We were never allowed to watch it.
Really? See, I have a couple friends that were like that.
The whole panic over, the moral panic over D&D in the early 80s. I think, it was mostly just a knowledge thing, like my parents, like a lot of parents, just had no knowledge of this, and they just heard from hearsay. It was an unwholesome show, and D&D, what is this madness that's going to corrupt our kids? So I don't think any of us were really wanting to, but we were more like, let's watch He-Man and stuff like that. But it is kind of a shame. It does look, now I'm sure it's completely harmless. I'm sure I could my kids watch it, but
Yeah, and then speaking about whole, panic and everything that happened in '85, so it had been on the air for like a little less than 2 years. They actually had to amend the opening and put like a warning on it that the FTC made them say that this game has been linked to real life deaths. La la la.
Oh, good grief.
Which, of course, that was all proven false, but that was in the height of the satanic panic. So
this was the cartoon where the kids went into Dungeons and Dragons by riding a roller coaster
yep.
into a D&D themed roller coaster ride.
Yeah, the intro was, hey, look, a Dungeons and Dragons ride. And then they get on the ride, and then they get sucked back into the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, and they
did that roller coaster do it to every kid who ever are they missing thousands of kids and they had to shut that amusement park down? Or
I always wondered that. I'm like, if it happened to them, how many other kids are running around this land, And then, as I said in this article I put up, why did TSR never license that as an actual roller coaster? How awesome would that have been if there was an actual Dungeons and Dragons roller coaster ride?
I have a feeling some parents would have been very afraid to have their kids ride it.
Well, probably is.
Still better than Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, right?
Well, there is that.
There's that,
Actually,
yes.
I think this came out during a time period where I was doing a lot of experimenting with other role-playing games. And so, therefore, this, I think, was around the start of my lull with Dungeons and Dragons and mainly looking for other games such as the Fantasy Trip, GURPS, and Traveler was doing a lot or stuff like that. So I think that's the reason why another reason why I had ignored this particular cartoon series was...
And DDO Central in the chat room is pointing out something that I completely forgot about. There is a little homage to this cartoon in DDO. There is a quest in the harbor called Fear Factory. And if you go into that quest, you are going to run into some of the mobs that you have to kill. They are the Undead Barbarian, the Undead Cavalier, the Undead Magician, and the Undead Ranger. And if you look at them closely, they look kind of awful familiar with what they're wearing.
So Fear Factor, I don't think I've run that one yet.
Yes.
Fear Factory?
Yeah, it's called Fear Factory, yep.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to check that out this week.
Yeah, so that's like a little cool Easter egg. So that's kind of just a throwback to the cartoon. So yeah, and as I said, you can, if you want to watch it, I don't think it's like on Netflix or anything like that, streaming anywhere, but you can find box sets of it. They're getting kind of hard to find at this point because they're becoming out of print. And the one particular box set that I have is I guess super rare, I found out, because of the prices that it sells for. I didn't pay. I mean, I just bought it when it first came out. I went into Walmart or whatever. It's like, oh, cool. I remember that cartoon. I got it for $20 or something, and now it sells for $400. But
did they ever make any campaigns or anything for the tabletop based on the cartoon?
In the box set, the DVD box set that I have, yes, there is a campaign and there's characters and everything for it.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah. So if you haven't checked it out, check out the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon, which, as I said, yesterday, it debuted back in 1983 on September 17th.
Now let's head into what's coming in from the dungeon. And Warhammer RPG has a humble bundle.
That's easy for you to say, by the way.
I don't think it was easy for you to say.
Yeah, Humble Bundle's been doing a lot of awesome RPG bundles lately, and I noticed this one, and actually a couple people pointed it out to me too, so thanks for the heads up on this. Usually I get emails because I bought enough see, now I can't even say it finally. I have bought enough Humble Bundles to where they basically just tell me, hey, there's a new bundle out, whatever. And this one, for some reason, I didn't get an email about, but I did get it from a couple of their readers on the site. So yeah, if you want to play the Warhammer RPG, this is a good way to jump in, just like all the other bundle. There's different tiers. You have your $1, $8, $10, all the way up to $20, and the $20 one will get you like everything. There's like 55 different books. And the big thing about the $20 bundle, if you jump on that one, for the first time ever, the first edition rulebook is on PDF. So a lot of people really like first edition Warhammer Fantasy. I've never played the Warhammer RPG, so I can't speak to anything how this plays. I know a lot of people love the Warhammer RPG, and this is just a great way to get the books via PDF, and you can support charity at the same time, so that's always awesome. So check it out, the Humble Bundle Warhammer RPG Bundle. And as of this recording, you have, as I'm selling for time, there is, and of course my internet is being slow.
8
days
not
left.
DDO music.
All right. Well, why you do that? I was looking at Amazon how much they sold the complete animated series for. That is for $14.99.
Yeah, that's the newer version of it that came out. Yeah.
Oh, that's a newer version. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, even
That-
they look like the same characters.
Well, it's what I'm saying is that's a newer version of the DVD set out. That is just all you get on that set is the cartoons.
Ah.
Yeah, and you're also not a real fan if you buy that. So
Yeah, that's
what
right.
he's
Oh,
saying.
you mean you have to get the collector's edition that's out of print?
That's right. You need that one because it's got the behind the scenes. It's got the interviews. It's got the D&D campaign book. That's the one that you want. But yeah, that's out of print. And don't pay the price for that. Just buy the set that just has the cartoons on it. Because nobody needs to pay what that other out of print set. I was like shocked. And I'm like contemplating. I'm like, wow, mine is in like really good shape. I bet I could get good money for it. Not that I would ever sell it, but I bet I could get good money for my set.
All right. Did you find it yet?
Yeah, there's 8 days left as of this recording.
Okay. Then let's head into what's on the screen. And Drac had a little interview with Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation. And how did it go?
I had a really good chat with the BCom Studios guys. Great interview. And I actually did kind of get an exclusive from them.
Yeah?
All they have been saying is Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation was coming out in the fall. Well, I actually got out of them that it's coming out in October.
All right. That's good news.
I tried to push and get an actual date, but they're like, we'll just keep it at October.
Just keep it at October.
You know, I'm like, you can't tell me what week in October, but yeah, so yeah, but yeah, great guys. We, I ask them, their future plans for the game. They do have plans to add all the other board games in as DLC, so that is a plan. And they want people to tell them which board game they want to do first. And of course, I rightly told them the only correct answer to that is Castle Ravenloft.
Oh, of course.
And found out a little about the gameplay and how it works. So yeah, check the interview out. It was a great interview, and I thank them for taking some time out and talk to me because they are super busy. It took me a while, as Sip was kind of alluding to before. It took me many emails going back and forth with the PR person to actually set a good time up. So, but I appreciate them doing it. And yes, look for that coming in October.
Very well. In October, so that means in time for Halloween.
I'm kind of assuming, it's going to be near the end of October, but I guess we'll see.
Okay, then let's end into our week in gaming. And Drac, what were you doing when you weren't interviewing people from BCom?
I, of course, ran the quest that I always run, and that is the new Duel for the Underdark quest. Still trying to get those drops. Still no drop. I'm getting name drops to drop now, but not what I want. Go figure.
Okay.
And then on Friday night, Saturday morning, depends on how you want to look at it, because they start at 2 a.m. I was on with the damsels. Got a little ping from them, and they said, hey, come on the show. So I came on. I stayed up super late, and I played with the damsels, and we were running the Devil's Gambit. So we ran Grim and Barrett, Tavern Brawl, and Subversion. And do you remember last week when we were talking about the Chronicle, and they talked about how Even Note was on their show, and I said I had to call them out on Twitter because even though it said, thanks for the great times, damsels, and thanks so much for not letting me die. And I said, hey, they always let me die when I'm on there. Yeah. They killed me.
They killed you.
Grim and Barrett. We walk up to Grim and Barrett, and the first thing they say is, we're going to do this at Reaper Level 1.
What?
And I'm
okay. Elite's no longer good enough for them.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, we walk in there. It was like a party wipe within 2 seconds. It was crazy. It was just so we went back in and finished it then. But, and I have to call this out too, Saba Jade. I used to think Saba Jade was my friend.
Uh-oh.
But she is no longer my friend.
What did she do to you?
Grim and Barrett. That is the one that, of course, has the quiver in it.
Yeah,
that's
she stole the quiver from you.
That's the quest that I ran at least 200 times to get the quiver to drop for me. We run it, the quiver drops. And Les is like, oh, that's the quiver the Drac ones. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one that I had to run this quest over 200 times to get. And Saba's like, my ranger's going to love this. Click. And it was like gone out of the chest. And I'm like, did you seriously just do that? And she's like, oh, yeah, I've been looking at this for my ranger. And I'm like, that is cold, Saba. That is cold. So, yeah. So, fun times. I always love playing with the damsels. And I will link to, I'm not sure if that's up on YouTube yet, but if it is, I will link to the video because you just have to see the craziness that ensued. And, yeah, they killed me many, many times, but that's what the damsels do. They just kill me. But, yeah, that's okay. And then the only other thing I did in DDO, I did with you. I'll let you talk about that. Other video games-wise, still playing Conan Exiles. I think I'm about ready to do my review of that. I'm still kind of spoiler-ish. I still enjoy it. It's a fun game. If you like the whole lore of Conan, you'll love it. It's a Conan survival MMORPG. I mean, that's the only way to say it. So if you like the survival genre and then you like Conan, mix them together, and there you have it. So look for the review of that coming soon. And jumped into Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. That's actually in open beta now. I was playing it for a while in the closed alpha, and now can actually talk about it. And that's the one that we had talked about previously. That's the clicker title. So it's fun. That's just kind of like a stupid time waster. I played when I was doing something else. I was actually doing some work, and I would just look up every once in a while and click a couple times and basically just let them do their thing and collect other things for me. So fun game, and that's actually free and open right now on Steam, so I'll link to it if you want to check that out. So that was really all I did. Once again, real life got in my way, as it tends to do, so I didn't get a lot of gameplay in, but what about you, Pinley?
All right, we will begin with what I did with you, and that was my No Morlock, level 20, and we continued on in Evening Star, where we had a little stay at the end, where Drac had the ultimate crit with an assassination attempt.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes. It was amazing. There is, if you're familiar with that quest, when you go into the barn and then you go up on the top level there's that boss up there. So I snuck up there, and he actually didn't see me, so I told Pine Leaf, I'm like, well, go ahead and start shooting him or whatever. Do your thing. I'm going to sneak behind him, and I'm actually going to attempt an assassinate on him.
Right.
I rolled a natty 20. I got a natural 20 on my, and he just, died. It was like, wham, dead. And then finally it's like, what happened? I'm like, that was an assassination that went correctly.
That went correctly, yeah.
And I said, there's just something so satisfying about just sneaking up behind somebody and just bam, and then dead.
Bam, dead. Yes.
Happens a lot in real life, too.
That's right.
Anyway, then we ran Rebels Underground, and finally we reached the end of the road.
Wow, that sounds so final, finally.
Yeah.
When you say it that way, it's
Boys to Men comes in. It's the end of the road, but he can't roll on.
Then I was trying to think of what character would I want to use for Ravenloft, because obviously I want to make sure that I get a character that is Ravenloft ready when the dungeon's released, right?
Seems logical.
It seems logical. So therefore, I decided that I would want to run Ravenloft with a Dragonborn Artificer.
Hey, I heard those are cool.
Yes. So
Fire. You breathe fire. It's awesome.
no, I'll breathe lightning.
Well, Pine Leaf is always different. Pay no attention to him. Breathe fire. It's awesome.
Oh, I have a question for you. Can I ask a random
Sure.
question? So I'm looking at all the possibilities of all these builds. Are there like YouTube channels out there where people create weird builds and kind of show you how they work? Have you
Yes.
seen anything like that?
Yes. Axel. I will give you the link to his channel. Axel does awesome builds.
So that'd be cool. I was looking at all of these thinking it would take so long to create a character and kind of work them up until this build kind of starts clicking. It'd be kind of neat to see like how they operate and all that because there's so many different options. So I was just curious. I'll shut up now.
Okay. So therefore, I created my artificer and I ran through the quests in Korthos Village from the grotto all the way up to the collaborator. And I reached level 2 at the end of that. So therefore, starting to remember the artificer since I used to run an artificer with Drac, so I have some familiarity with the class. So now this time I'm going to be running it with the Dragonborn, so I will be dipping quite a bit into the racial tree because I think the last time I ran an artificer, I did not spend much time in the racial tree. I spent most of my time only in the artificers instead. But I can't resist bringing up my racials enough so that I could start breathing out lightning. And then in Minecraft, I started doing my dungeon for my version of the Temple of Elemental Evil, which I'm calling the Temple of Elemental Pine. And I had been debating on exactly how much I was going to be following the module. Now, I did not follow the module for the upstairs, for the main level, but for the dungeon, I am pretty much following the dungeon and how that operates. So I'm not planning on doing diagonal corridors. I'm going to do something similar to what they did in DDO, where they decided to punt with all the diagonal corridors and instead do 2 straights instead. So that would be the plans for that. But I'm just getting started. I'm in the early parts of the first level there. And then on tabletop, I started playing a new game called Triplock, which is a game where you're attempting to essentially trying to manipulate a lock mechanism so that you will be able to complete diagrams that you have drawn. The idea is to complete the diagrams, and the first one to get 10 points worth of diagrams is the winner for the round. And in the solo game, they have various challenges that you do in order to try to get through. So I'm about halfway through the solo game where I'm getting ready to start the 3rd challenge on there and see how well I can do. So far, it's taken me 3 tries to do the first 2 rooms. So yeah, it's going to get tricky. It looks like each one's going to get tougher as you go along. And that is my week. So, Sip, what were you up to this week in gaming?
Do you want me just to focus on DDO or just?
No, you can talk about a couple other games if you want. That's fine.
Well, I kind of already talked about what I did in DDO, and so just working my way through the harbor. I didn't have any. I just started at the top and started going down on the map. So I was hoping that seemed like the progression. Anyways, in that area. Other than that, I've been playing a bit of Lotro, going through the Mordor expansion. I'm in a really particularly tough area, so the gaming session there is just like a battle of inches. And
hold on. In Mordor, as far as I know, the particularly tough area begins in early Udun and ends somewhere late in the last zone.
Yeah. But there are some places a little worse than others. I think I got a little spoiled because there's a whole zone about like spiders. It's like a spider themed zone. Actually, wonderful quest flow.
Actually, Lingris is the first of the zones that actually completed.
Yeah.
I think my power level was just barely kept up because my power level was apparently a bit behind when I was doing the first 2 zones. And the Lingers, I said, okay, I got to see what the storyline is for Shelob and all that stuff. So I went.
Yeah, I was so disappointed at the end. They don't really show you Shelob.
I have a feeling they are.
That's a raid.
They want to build her up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when the raid comes along, I have a feeling that's when you finally get to get a peek at her. I'm sure.
Definitely agree with you.
She is going to be involved in the. I cannot see them doing a raid in Mordor without Shelob being a major player in it.
It was such a tease. Like the whole zone, like just building up, and it's like, stay tuned for the raid.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
But they do show you some really cool spiders, and I'll be okay with that. So, other than Lotro, Secret World Legends is one of my mainstays. Love that game. Working my way through Pennsylvania and just having a blast there as always.
I gotta jump back into that.
You should. I think they've actually made some really nice improvements with the reboot. But
I liked it that little bit. See, because my problem with Secret World, I loved Secret World, but it just got so hard. I could never get out of, was it like Blue Mountains or whatever it was called?
Yeah, that's a make or break area.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is like, I was like, screw this. This is like way too hard. This is like not even fun at this point.
It still gets tougher in terms of combat, but I think they've readjusted it so it's a lot more gracious in its leveling curve. You'll blow through the first 3 zones like you're a super-powered madman. Now I'm in Transylvania. I have to be a lot more cautious in how I pick my battles, but you also have better gear, and you know how it is. So yeah, I played a little bit of Neverwinter. Again, just sometimes you just want an MMO you can jump into every now and then. And for Neverwinter, it's like I completely can shut my brain off and follow the sparkly trail.
Yep.
And just click.
I've said that I don't know how many times about Neverwinter. It's like I'll jump in for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then I'll be good for a while.
Compared to DDO, it's like night and day. It's a completely different experience.
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel like really comparing them other than, it's interesting. It's interesting how you can take the same property and come up with completely different things and still make them both enjoyable in their own way.
Well, yeah, they're the same property, but they are based on different editions of said property.
Sure. So it's thematically. You got like, I don't know, the flavor.
Yeah,
but,
I know. Like for example, I have heard that they have their own version of the temple, for example.
Yeah, because wasn't it one of those things with Wizard of the Coast every year when they have a major push in Dungeons and Dragons on the tabletop that they'll push it in Neverwinter and DDO at the same time? I know they did with Temple of Elemental Evil. I thought they did it this year with what was it? I don't know, but it was weird. At least no, in, DDO they did.
Neverwinter gets everything.
Yeah, but both games had Temple.
It's true.
I think this year was the new jungle.
Yes, Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah, is DDO getting any of that flavor? Maybe with the later.
They haven't said. I'm hoping that's something they might do. They might throw in as maybe a lead up to Ravenloft. We might get a jungle area with some dinosaurs. Zombie dinosaurs at that.
Oh, I'm also playing West of Loathing. Have you guys played that? Heard of it? Cricket. Okay. It's have you heard of Kingdom of Loathing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a single player spin-off. It's a cowboy spin-off of Kingdom of Loathing. It's
really?
It's hilarious. Seriously, it's $11. Pick it up. I've seen so many people say it's the RPG of the year, and I totally agree. It's stick figures, and it's goofiness, and it's cowboys, and it's demonic cows, and it's a really fun RPG. A lot of puzzles, and it's just you're laughing your head off at how funny it's.
But you are trying to recommend to Drac a.
I was about to say you had me until you said puzzles.
Yes.
It's not like
I'm a big puzzle person, but it's kind of awesome.
Super tough puzzles. I would say some areas you got to turn on your brain. You gotta figure out like okay, so there's a hat factory for an example, and you're trying to capture this guild or this gang of varmints, and you go into each room in the hat factory, and there's a bunch of tables, and a bandit is hiding between one of those. So you have to click on one hat. If you guess wrong, you have to start all the way over, and you have to capture 5 bandits. Every room has a different trick to it, and once you figure out the trick, you can always capture the bandit every time. But it's all observational. Like one room you see the bandit will fall asleep and start snoring after 10 seconds. And one room, the hat's a different color. And one room, you have to play a harmonica because then he'll start singing along and stuff like that. It's weird, goofy nonsense. It's fun. It's awesome.
Well, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
We currently have 22 supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support DDO players, simply go to the donations page where you could support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you'll find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even be a guest with us for an episode of DDO Players News. We did not receive any emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you can send it to podcast@ddoplayers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, the Player Alliance @Players Ally, DDO Players @DDO Players, Draculetta @Draculetta_72, and Pineleaf @PineleafNews. And you can follow our guest on Twitter @Sipster and Sipster. Okay.
It's all good. Sipster.
BioBreak blog at https://biobreaks.wordpress.com and Battle Bards Podcast at battlebards.libsyn.com. The Players Alliance has 3 live shows every Monday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have DDO Players News on the first and third Fridays of each month at 11:59 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have XP Quest, and every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Lotro Players News. And you can join us for our live shows at ddoplayers.com/live. DDO Players is brought to you by the Table of Ultimate Gaming Kickstarter. If you need a new gaming table, how about one that can be customized to your specifications? The Kickstarter table packages start at $5.99 for a 3x5 table, but we also have other sizes available, 4x6 and the 2.4x4. You have AC power and USB power outlets in 2 locations on the tables. The campaign is nearing its end, only 9 days left, so don't miss out on your chance for a great gaming table. The Kickstarter can be found at www.kickstarter.com, projects, Table of Ultimate Gaming. Just look at our show notes for the full URL. And that is all for tonight. And this is Pineleaf News reminding you to quest responsibly.